Hey guys, my name is Abigail, and I'm going to be presenting my mineral iron that I did my research on. In this presentation, we'll discuss the importance of iron and its sources, where it comes from in food, deficiencies that come with iron, and supplementation as well. So, just a brief introduction. Iron is a trace mineral, meaning the body cannot produce it by itself. It needs to be consumed via food or supplementation. So, it's found in many foods, and we'll get into that in the next slide, but it's essential for physical growth, neurological function, which we will get into further in a study that I found, hormone synthesis, oxygen transport in the blood, and energy production. So, to follow up, there are two different types of iron in our diet, and it's heme iron and non-heme. So, heme iron is comes from animal-based products like your red meats. A lot of Americans consume a lot of red meat and meat in general, so we are very efficient in heme iron. And it is the most easily absorbed type of iron versus the non-heme. And it's part of hemoglobin and myoglobin in the blood. So, on the contrary, non-heme, that comes from your plant-based foods, like in your fortified foods, like your fortified cereals, your beans, lentils, spinach, and any type of fortified cereal. Like I said, if you turn your cereal box around and look at um, the nutrition label, which we have learned to do in this class, you'll see that a lot of your cereals at home iron as well. So it is not it's not absorbed in the body as efficiently as heme iron. Um, and it has to be converted to a different form in order to be absorbed. And that's usually done during digestion. So the RDA, recommended dietary allowance, I found this chart on the NIH website, and I thought it was important to share just to highlight that during your needs of iron vary based on your age, your gender, different walks of life, right? So some of the things to highlight here is the male versus female intake. So it says that the 14 and 18 years old and the 19 to 50 years, there's a difference in what males require and females require. And that's it is due to childbearing years. Now, our needs change versus when women are pregnant as well. So it increases to a total of 27 milligrams. And you can see that highlighted in the childbearing years in the 14 to 18 years and 19 to 50 years. So there's a 12 milligram increase from that original 15 milligrams that 14 to 18-year-olds require. And then similarly, there's a 9 milligram increase in the 19 to 50 years age bracket for pregnant individuals. Now, the total is 27 milligrams, and that is the highest amount of iron that any woman ever needs is during pregnancy. And when somebody is breastfeeding or lactating, it does decrease a little bit from when you're pregnant. And there's a five from the 14 to 18 years, there's a 17 decrease from pregnancy and a 5 milligram decrease versus the normal. So it even decreases from the average that we need as females. And in the 19 to 50 years, there's an 18 milligram decrease from pregnancy from the 27 to 9. It's even lower than when you're 14 to 18 years, right? And overall, there's a 9 milligram decrease than your normal as well. So, some of the similarities, I highlighted a lot of the differences and pointed out a lot of the highlights of male and female and pregnancy. But from when we're 7 to 12 months, but that's where we kind of stay the same up until that 13 years, right? That's when it starts to change because that's your childbearing years. But also, I find it interesting that from 7 to 12 months old, obviously we are at that age developing and we're growing, so we do need a little bit more. But when we're 51 and plus years old, we only need 8 milligrams. So it goes back to normal, which usually with a lot of different vitamins and minerals, the older you get, the more you need. So I thought that was a little interesting. And I also wanted to highlight that for vegetarians, the RDAs is 1.8. They recommend 1.8 times more iron than what's listed on this table here. Because they're consuming a lot of heme iron, non-heme from your stuff. So I found a study that highlights how iron helps brain function. And it was a 2022 study, and it suggests that iron deficiency is linked to a diminished cognitive performance in adolescence. So iron is critical for both brain development and function. And this study overall emphasized that adolescence, it's crucial for you to have adequate iron levels during this period because you're growing, because you need to learn and absorb all this knowledge, you also need to absorb all this iron as well. But a direct quote from this study says that adequate iron status during adolescence is critical for optimal neurodevelopment, given the brain's increased demand for iron during this period. So some of the food sources where you get iron, right? Your meats, your fish, vegetables, legumes, some of this stuff, a lot of beef liver as well. It's where you get a lot of different organs, meat organs or animal organs. And it is highlighted that most individuals already meet their needs, their iron needs through their diet. And that's probably due to America's red meat consumption, right? Or meat consumption in general. And like I mentioned earlier, if you buy a fortified cereal and you need a little extra boost, that'll help boost that intake as well. When is supplementation needed for iron? So I had already highlighted the differences in pregnancy and how women need an increased amount of iron during pregnancy. But pregnancy is one of those instances that we need supplements sometimes. But a 2021 study found that a lot of women had low iron stores during pregnancy, meaning there is a need for supplementation during pregnancy. And this puts the babies at risk for preterm birth, low birth weight, and even effects on neurodevelopment, meaning it could cause your baby to have some deficits in that way. And another reason why supplementation may be needed is a diagnosed iron deficiency from a doctor, right? So the 3 deficiencies that we'll highlight later are storage iron depletion, early functional iron deficiency, and iron deficiency anemia. So when I researched supplements, I knew there was going to be a lot of iron supplements on the market. I found some in pills, capsules, even these drops, which I found were really interesting, and even gummies, right? We can find these in grocery stores, vitamin shops like GNC, even online retailers, but we do have to be careful when we buy online or even from stores. We need to do our research first and consult with a doctor before we even start to experiment with stuff like this. But these supplements usually contain iron, types of iron such as ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, and ferrous sulfate. And the price range was around $20 to $45. The highest I found was $45. You don't need to spend $45 on iron supplements, but overall it's generally affordable. So the one on the left here, I think that one was $15, and that was on GNC's website. This middle one here, the drops are like 21, which I feel like that's kind of an interesting way to take your supplement, but efficient. And then you have your gummies as well. And I think the gummies were around $14 at Target.com. So the interaction with other nutrients. So vitamin, there's a lot of when you're taking iron supplements and you're consulting with your doctor, they will tell you to stay away from some, and then they will also tell you if you have other deficiencies, whether to take these certain other vitamins with this mineral. For example, vitamin A and iron, according to the Linus Pauling Institute, when you take these together, it has positive success in reducing anemia symptoms. This is only when both deficiencies, so if someone's deficient in vitamin A and iron, but it will help those symptoms. Zinc and iron, it's suggested that when you take these types of supplements, that in order to maximize them, the absorption of them, you must take them with food, right? But in the case of zinc and iron supplementation together, it maximizes zinc absorption. So that kind of helps as well for those who are deficient in zinc. And then you have calcium and iron. So that's kind of like more of your negative interaction there. When someone supplements with both, it can lead to decreased iron absorption, which could ultimately counteract the reason why you're taking the iron supplement. So you just have to really make sure you consult with your doctor before introducing iron supplements or any other supplements. So we're going to circle back to the types of iron deficiency. So it's in order from least severe to most severe. So your original one is your storage iron depletion. That just means you have low reserves of iron, and that's your least severe, but it can develop further and worsen into early functional iron deficiency. Now, this is where it starts to impair your bodily functions and your red blood cell production. And if that goes untreated, you could ultimately develop iron deficiency anemia, which is the worst, the most severe. And this is usually most prevalent in those who are in third world countries, eat a vegetarian diet, and even have chronic kidney disease. And when you're deficient, you can also take too much with the overload, right? And so iron overload, what I found is it's obviously caused by excessive intake or even hereditary conditions like hemochromatosis. And some of the risks that come with like intaking too much iron is liver cancer, type 2 diabetes, and even neurodegenerative diseases. In conclusion, iron is crucial for all ages and life stages, and it supports red blood cell production, oxygen transport, energy metabolism. It's found both in food and supplements, but balance is key, as we just highlighted, and intaking not enough, and intaking too much can ultimately cause health issues. And here are some of my references. And yeah, thank you guys for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.